Stuart, Chico,
Yes.
would you talk about the power of imagination and the role that it plays in our practice?
I can talk about the power of imagination and the role that it plays in art, in music, and literature. But our class, I mean, it's a process. It's a very simple technique. It doesn't require an ordinary, extraordinary imagination. It's learning to use tools. When you build a house, you have to know how to use the tools. Meditation is also, learning how to use the God-given tools that we have in order to build a system inside ourselves that's strong enough to detach from our karma and to free ourselves to become one with higher energy in the universe. Now, this is not imagination. Understand? It's not, manufacturing something in your brain that is literary or artistic or imaginary. Real. It's real tools. Chakras are not imaginary centers. They are real centers inside a human being. Where I wouldn't even call it imagination comes in as you open and touch transcendental energies, the astral plane, different areas of that, you know, you begin to see things that are beyond the ordinary, but you're not manufacturing them and imagining them. They just exist and you're seeing them. And they're there and they have a purpose. And the purpose is to energize each and every one of us, to fill us with Shakti, to build us, so that we can transcend, the astral plane and all these different other planes that exist in the cosmos and connect with what's infinite in the universe. So I don't, I don't know. I mean, look, I have a pretty good imagination. I've written a lot of books using it. Um, but what even makes works of art palpable and pragmatic and accessible to people is, technique. It's the craft of knowing how to do it, knowing how to tap areas in yourself where there's higher consciousness, knowing how to transform problematic parts of yourself into Shakti, into energy, into chi, that helps you get closer, to your spiritual development. None of this is imagination. It's all very practical way of approaching your inner work. So imagination, dream reality, all that other stuff. Yes, it can touch on higher planes of consciousness, but it's not going to give anybody their enlightenment. It could take you on a couple of steps up the ladder, but it won't provide enlightenment. I was shocked, years ago, I was reading Plato, I think he wrote a book called The Republic. And I think it was that one, in one of his books anyway, he talks about music, he talks about art as secondary, manifestations of higher energy. He called them literally copies of spirit, not spirit themselves. And I mean, it shocked me because he was this young poet, trying to conjure up as much imagination as possible to create works of art. And I'm being told by one of the greatest philosophers that it's just secondary. It's not the thing itself. It's just a manifestation of the thing. And I think that's the best that imagination can do. be a manifestation of the thing, but not a connection with what's infinite in the universe, with spirit, with higher energy, with God. I mean, my socks, when I read that, my socks rolled up and down. Man, was I pissed off. I said, I can't be. And then, as I grew, I realized he was right on. It was right on. Not putting imagination down and not putting works of art down. Certainly my life has evolved around the art world. But recognizing, and thank God I recognized it early on, I needed something deeper. I remember, Pat Fay was with me. I won't name the pretty big celebrity conductor. We were sitting in Miami Beach on Lincoln Road and talking. And, he was kind of a friend of mine. I met him in New York. He used to come in my gallery all the time. And I'll never forget, we're sitting there and he said to me, Stuart, it can't be music. There has to be something that higher than music. I looked at him, I said, if I lived to be 1,000 years old, I'd never think I'd ever hear that come from your mouth. He said, no, it can't be music. It has to be a higher energy than music. Remember, you were there, Pat. I'll never forget that. So imagination is great. It's not a spiritual life. It's not the thing in itself, God in itself. And today, all the products of imagination have become just commercial objects, It's pretty sad what's happened to art today. They weigh the value of the artistic creation by the amount of money it brings, not by what the artist really created. So I'll repeat it once again. Imagination is wonderful. It elevates our consciousness. It helps us go to a higher place to see a more profound reality. But imagination is not spirit itself. It's a reflection of spirit.
Thank you, Stuart. That's very clear.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, I have a question.
Yes.
So, especially recently, I've been facing a lot of pressure at work and to a certain degree in my personal life. And I'm wondering, how can I face this with an open heart instead of getting stressed or frustrated?
Well, let me ask you, what do you think the answer is, Isabel? Tell me what the answer, you know the answer to this. I mean, the pressure you're experiencing in your personal life and the job that you have is telling you that you have to grow as a human being. You have to get bigger than it. Otherwise, this pressure will inflict pain on you the rest of your life. But you get bigger than it. Years ago, when I was living on 13th Street, I had a loft there in Manhattan. And I had to leave. I had trouble with the landlord, and they sold the building, and it became kind of a minor league nightmare. But I found a place. That was, I think, 1,500 square feet bigger and really a beautiful loft I found to move. The ashram itself, place to live and to have. And one of my students came up to me and he said, the rent was at least double what I was paying on 13th Street. So he said, my God, Stuart, it's very expensive. I said to him, look, I'll sell another painting. I'm not going to let the pressure get to me. I'll go deeper than the pressure. I will grow because of the pressure. I will become more of a human being because of the pressure. I'm not going to get to me and tear me apart. I have to grow. It's telling me it's time to move to the next level of my life. It's telling you, Isabel, it's time to move to the next level of your life. Everything you've done up to this point is not going to work. You have to grow. You have to become bigger inside yourself, more capable, and you got to transform all of that pressure into something very minor. And the only person who can do it is you, by building yourself and growing and using the difficulties of your life to grow instead of to retreat into some old habit, that you think defends yourself against the world. And there's nothing wrong with those pressures. There's nothing wrong with the pressure of having a relationship. You got to grow. You have to allow somebody else to live in your life. Not easy to have somebody else live in your life. You got to grow. You got to become more of a human being. You have to deal with, or I mean, look, I started out selling wagon wheels and rusty wrenches. I'm dealing with major art to major museums. I had to grow to keep it from destroying me. And the only way I was able to manage it is I grew in myself. It became an opportunity for me to get closer to God, closer to my spiritual, growth and enlightenment than to allow it to defeat me. So what you told me, Isabel, is a very positive thing. I want you to know that. It means you're ready to go to the next level in your life. So please go there. You have all the training, you have all the inner work, you've arrived at this place. Now it's ready to take the next step. And all the pressure is telling you, you have to take the next step. And I think I've learned in my life to look for pressure. I need it. It makes me grow. I don't find it negative and I don't find it overbearing. I find that I have to become bigger. I have to grow. The alternative is hell, you crawl back into some corner to protect yourself against life. I mean, my famous story about buy that building. I'll never forget that as long as I live. I have $600 to my name. Buy that shopping center. I said, Rudy, so anyone could do it with money. That was his response. And he was right. If you have $100 million, what problem is it to buy a strip mall in a little town, If you have $600 in the bank, you have to grow. You have no choice in the matter. I grew. A month later, I bought the building. It's a true story. And Rudy constantly got pressure on, and he taught me how to deal with it by putting that pressure on. I remember another story when I was living in Texas. We were going to build this house. We had this really fabulous house that we built down there for the people in the ashram to live in. And I went to the bank to get a loan. I had all the architectural plans and everything. And the banker offered me half the amount of money I needed to build the house. was disgusting. I mean, you know, I said, look at this thing. It's gorgeous. It's going to become, you know, a monument in the Denton, Texas. And I'll give you this amount of money. I said, all right, screw you. I took the money and we built the house. You can't imagine how I had to grow. The only place I could get the energy to do that project was going up to God and asking the energy to help me finish that house. That's how I got it. That's how it got done with half the amount of money we really needed to build it. And what a house. It's gorgeous, you know. It became a tourist point in the town of Denton, you know, I mean, it was an incredible place. And that's how it got built. I had to grow. I had no choice in the matter. And it started coming. The money started coming. You know, it came from the most outrageous places. It came. We had a restaurant that was booming, and it helped pay for a lot of it. You know, I mean, and it got built. And it's been that way, I think, my entire life, you know, running the art business in New York and having to deal with, you know, anyway, I don't want to get into it. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? And the wonderment of all this is inside each and every person sitting here, and actually each and every person in the world, there's a connection with higher energy, in the energy that is infinite in the universe. There's no limitation to the knowledge, the wisdom you can draw on. All that is required is that one does the work to tap that energy. And that energy makes things possible that ordinarily are not possible. On top of it, it gives you a spiritual life, which is something that most people in business do not have. They have talent to make money and deal with that kind of thing, but very rarely do you find somebody in a business, you know, that's having a spiritual life at the same time. Does anyone else have a question to us? Okay, you know, just as a reminder, there won't be class this Sunday. We're having a retreat. It's been very wonderful, you know. We had 2 classes, in-person classes here today. I mean, I just love it. It's really great. And dinner together tonight. I mean, it's, you know, it's like a wonderful family come together from different places in the world. Brazil, Israel, Oregon. I mean, it's extraordinary, you know, having dinner together, having classes, you know. So there'll be a retreat this weekend. I won't be able to teach classes, but there will be class on Monday and there'll be class tomorrow. So thank you all. God bless you all, you know, for listening to all my stuff. God bless you all. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Stuart. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Much, Stuart.